Welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast. My name is Katrina Murphy, Deputy News Editor. This week we report on new laws that will force beef factories and retailers to publish their full accounts. Agribusiness Editor Owen Lowry discusses the implications.
Hi, I'm Paul Mooney of the Farmers Journal. The big meat companies in Ireland don't publish their accounts, and many farmers suspect that they are hiding big profits. But there's changes coming to company law, and my colleague Owen Lowry will explain that to us now in a moment. But first, Owen, I want to ask you, what exactly is limited liability, and what is a limited company and unlimited company?
Well, I suppose, Paul, there are two types of company mainly. The majority of companies in Ireland are limited companies, which means that the owners of the companies have limited liability in that if the company goes under, all that is at risk is the assets pertaining to that company. In an unlimited company, it goes beyond the company and it goes into the personal assets of the shareholders. Now, the majority of companies in Ireland are limited, but we have seen an increase in the amount of unlimited private companies in the last number of years, which there's about 2% of companies in Ireland that are unlimited.
Yes, and of course the price for being a limited company on limited liability is that you must publish your accounts, and that is for the benefit of your suppliers and your customers to show that your company is healthy. But explain to me this trend over recent years where we've seen many of the bigger meat companies going unlimited. Why did they do it?
Yeah, I suppose that's the biggest question on most people's minds. Why would a business go and take that risk to become unlimited? And I suppose there's a number of advantages to it. First of all is that it provides a level of confidentiality where they don't have the obligation to file accounts. And I suppose that secrecy that they would look for is for many reasons. The number one being that they don't need to disclose their profit levels, their margin levels, or the strength, or indeed actually the weakness of the particular business. And they don't want to keep that information away from their suppliers, competitors, their customers, and maybe some of their employees as well.
Yes, and perhaps including for farmers. So does that mean now that the owners of these big meat companies then have personal liability, for example, on their homes and on their personal assets?
What we've seen is, although these companies are unlimited private companies, what we've seen evolve is a complex web of creative structures that protects the families and the business owners. For example, what really happens is that the companies are unlimited in Ireland, which means they don't need to file accounts. But overall, these companies are owned offshore by limited companies, be they in Isle of Man or outside of the EU, and then ultimately they're owned by unlimited companies back in Ireland. So it's a very complex arrangement, and it's very difficult to get beyond that, but it protects the owners and the shareholders of their personal assets that they want, that if should an insolvency happen, the company goes under, the shareholders are protected.
So they're getting the best of both worlds.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, am I right in thinking that the EU has become concerned about this and is now taking steps?
Yeah, so what happened last week is that this is coming from an EU directive that has been going on for the last number of years, but it was signed into law last week, whereby if a company within its structure has any unlimited companies within its structure, and has a limited company within the structure, it must file accounts to the CRO, and this will change things dramatically. However, I would take that with a pinch of salt, because for those hoping that they're going to see exactly the profits of the big beef barons, or that's not going to happen, because we're probably going to see this at a group level, where we're going to see a number of different businesses piled into one. We'll see the turnovers for those businesses and the profits that they're making overall in the business, but not particularly for the specific businesses, i.e. they could be in the healthcare business, they could be in shipping, they could be in the beef processing as well.
Yes, but more visibility than we're getting at the moment, Tom.
It has to be welcomed, and a lot of people will ask why should people need to know publicly the financials of these companies? And I think given the scale of some of these companies, if we just take it in the meat sector, the three largest meat processors, ABP, Dawn, and Keepack, control about 65% of the cattle kill in Ireland. They turnover between them 5 billion people. They employ 10,000 people across the board within the livestock industry. So these are huge companies. They have huge implications. Should there be a problem, or should they go under? That's really what this will be about. So the government it's important for government to know the financial health of these companies. It's important for employees, and it's important for farmers.
Okay, and none of the big three meat companies do publish their accounts here.
No, they don't. But it's not just, and I think to be fair, it is something that is rife across the whole agri-food sector. When we started to look at this, we can see it's a very predominant culture in the meat processing business, but it goes across feed sector, the feed mill importers, some of the fertilizer importers, the retailers with Dunn Stores, one of the big names, who don't publish accounts, and some of the liquid milk producers or buyers.
Can you give us some examples of the different companies? And of course, we're not suggesting they're doing anything wrong. They're absolutely working within the law. It's
absolutely within the law. If we just look at we've named the big meat companies. So in the feed sector, we have the importers, Paul and Vincent's, R&H Hall, Kieran Milling. In the fruit sector, we have Keelings. Mushroom sector, Carberry's, Monaghan, Walsh Mushrooms. Retail is Dunn Stores, Strathroy Dairy, Natural Dairies, and Grassland Agro in the fertilizer sector.
And I can see that the companies you've named there are from a longer list, which you have in this week's Farmers Journal. Can I ask, when will we see the first accounts made public under these new laws?
Yeah, it looks like that this will apply to any companies starting the financial year in the 1st January 2017. So I'd expect to see information coming out around March 2018. And I suppose the important point here is that this doesn't mean that these companies are making excessive profits, but I think it's welcome to see that there is going to be some transparency and visibility, and I think farmers will welcome that as well.
Thank you, Owen. Very interesting news for farmers, and fully reported in this week's Farmers Journal.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast.
3 men appeared in court this week with 43 convictions between them. They pleaded guilty to possession of stolen property, including farm tools. News correspondent Thomas Hubert was at the case in Portlaoise.
I was following the case, Odile, of 3 men called McInerney. They're brothers and cousins, all related, and one of them is called Thomas, another one Jared, and another one William, all from Mountmellick and Mountrath in County Laois, and they were being trialled because they were arrested last year, found with a lot of stolen farm property with them, and have been in custody ever since. This is the end of this case. They're due to be sentenced very shortly.
Okay, and do we know what they had in their possession when they were arrested?
Yes, and what will strike farmers is that all the objects and the vehicles they were with were traced to various burglaries on farms in the weeks prior to their arrest last July. So, for example, they were driving a Jeep that was reported stolen on a farm in County Laois in June last year. Behind the Jeep was a trailer that was also stolen, this time in County Tipperary, with feed in it. And in the Jeep and in the car there were various tools that were stolen from several farms. Altogether 5 burglaries linked to the objects they had with them on that night.
Okay, so what happened then when they were arrested?
That was the night of the 11th of July last year, and what happened was that the Gardaí had spotted the Jeep. They knew it was stolen, it was hidden, secreted away in a bog, the Gardaí said in court, and they set up a surveillance operation. They had the National Surveillance Unit there, they had the Air Support Unit ready with a helicopter, they had armed Gardaí, the Armed Response Unit, with them, and local detectives. And when the 3 men started to move the car and the trailer and drive off, they tried to stop them, but what the Gardaí said in court was that the Jeep then really rammed the Garda car, the first one, into a second Garda car, and 3 Gardaí were injured during that night. And they gave victim impact statements that were read in court. One of them, he's still off sick nearly 1 year after the crash. Another one said it was the most terrifying incident he's ever been involved in, and thought he was going to be killed that night. So very strong language from the Gardaí involved that night. And this is where we're at. All this evidence is now before the judge, and he said he would consider this, as well as the defence arguments that the men have chilled children and families, and they're needed at home. Those kind of arguments were made as well, and a sentence is due very shortly.
Okay, and we'll have all the updates on farmersjournal.ie.
Absolutely.
We hope that you're enjoying this Irish Farmers Journal podcast. Find out more at farmersjournal.ie.
This time last year we interviewed pig farmer Frank Brady, who was just weeks from closure. We met up with him again to find out how rising pig prices have affected his business and what challenges now face the pig sector.
So this is Odile Evans here, news correspondent with the Irish Farmers Journal, and I'm up on Frank Brady's farm, which is a piggery. Frank, less than 12 months ago, you did an interview saying that you were weeks from closure. Tell us what's changed since.
The price. Basically.
It's staying static for the last while there at 170, isn't it?
Yeah, it's at 170. It should be going on a little bit more. The factories are playing hardball. They reckon they'd look at after us early on the year, and now they're turning to play it back. It's always very funny when they're cheap in Europe. The factories seem to be able to pay over 100%, and then when they go down and go start to get dear in Europe, we can't pay it. So look at if they consistently match the European price for the year, we're all happy. But if we're behind it, being an importing country for everything, it will be hard to take.
Yeah, and have feed prices moved for you?
One miller has moved, which is totally unjustified. The other miller has been loyal and has stayed very good. But one miller is just, he's not being fair. He's not given any justification for the rise, and yet he's given a €4 rise. We're fighting that at the minute.
So prices have recovered, there's a margin there. Is it enough to cover potential losses over the last couple of years?
If it stays where it is for foreseeable future, yes. If it's only a very short fix, no. There's a lot of holes to be filled, and we're filling them as best we can. Everybody thinks that they're not getting enough, but everybody's being looked after.
Right, so what would be the main concerns in the pig sector for you at the minute, do you think?
The main concerns would be the nitrates.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a serious problem, especially in the regions that are very intensive in pigs. Unless we can find some way of distributing the cheapest fertiliser you can find, it's going to be a problem going forward, because we're going to have a problem with nitrates and getting home for all of our slurry.
How much would it cost you, say, per pig to ship the slurry out, basically?
It used to be 50 cents, I'd say it could be up on €2 now. The way it's getting expensive over the last few years, because we have to go farther and farther, because people are getting bigger and bigger and there. And then the dairy farmers are up to their limits as well, so they can't really take it.
And do you think the tillage men should be paying for it? Like, is it being undervalued?
Oh, it's been totally undervalued. But sure, why would you pay for something when you know that there's a big farmer down the road going to give it to you for nothing because he's badly cut? He's decided that he'd expand for no ulterior reason other than probably
Agreed.
but, the big are getting bigger, and they're not looking at the bigger picture. Why is there need to be getting bigger? Why is the need for this? Why is the need to...
Yeah, well, why do we need to get bigger?
I'm not getting any bigger. I'm staying where I am. If somebody else... I don't know, you'd have to ask those people themselves why they need to have so many pigs and why they need to control the whole industry.
Like, is it economies of scale, or is it just...
It's just a passion for more.
Yeah. And
good luck to them if they can do it. But sometimes 100 pigs making money is better than 10,000 losing money. And that's where we go. We seem to think that we can't seem to think that just below the 100% production. Everybody makes money. When we go above the 100% and maybe up to 101, everybody loses money. So maybe it's time we looked at ourselves, and maybe it's time that there should be quota in pig meat.
Okay. What about back to the nitrates again? Like, will that turn into a quota? Will it turn into sow culls? Like, how do you see that playing out? Nitrates
is going to have to come. That's the slurry is going to have to be used in some other industry, be it something else, electricity or whatever the case may be, and then try and bring it back to selling it in the shops as organic fertiliser and taking the water off it, and maybe being able to use the water on the land or something. We were at there a water thing yesterday with Dr. McCarran from Monaghan, and of the world's water we can only use 1%. 96% is salt water, 3% is unusable, and 1%, of which Ireland is probably very, very fortunate. It's gold here because it falls here so often, and we have it. Listen to it as you speak, it's falling. But going forward, California used to have 20 million, now there's 40 million people out there, and that's all being irrigated by water that we can't afford to do. So the food industry as we know it is going to be different, because we're going to have to go where it grows naturally. This is where Ireland comes in. It grows naturally here, rather than trying to grow it artificially somewhere else. There are some countries in 100 years' time won't be there because they'll have been flooded.
Tell us, how big of a concern would Brexit be to your business?
Well, Brexit to my business, we're not sure. England would still need food. There's 400,000 pigs going up the north every year. 400,000 lambs coming down. It will be it's a worry, because we don't know. We won't know. Today is a big day. Can we say that?
Yeah.
Today is a big day, and we don't know what way the election is going to go.
Regardless, I think they've fairly set out their stall as to what way that they're going to go for Brexit, and that's it, aren't they?
England,
yeah.
What they want and what they get is always two different things.
But
if my father always told me that if I was ever selling, I used to be a cattle leader in my father's time, and he always told me that if you ever sold a cow, make sure you asked enough, because you could come down. But if you didn't ask enough, you couldn't go back up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same in life. If you're buying a car, if it's 4,000 or 40,000 today, and tomorrow he's looking for 41, you won't bid, whereas tomorrow if he's looking for 39, I'm getting a bargain. So England have set their stall high. Theresa May doesn't have the power, or she won't have the power that she thought she has. She's going to be caught. Truth be known, we talk to the middle class in England, they're quite happy to stay in Europe, and I think long term it might never even happen. It might be that there's something done that everybody will be happy, because nobody's happy at the minute, Europe or England. We do definitely in the north with us. There's 108 kilometres of a border with Monaghan, and the last thing we want is a hard border. We go up and down, even socialising. I know a friend of mine is a farm on both sides of the border. How does he do it? There's a lot of things we have to answer, and there's no point asking the questions or giving the answers, because we don't even know the questions yet, and until we know the questions we can't give the answers. We had a good thing there in Kildare. The AFA ran it well, just shows how efficient, how good they are at doing things like that. It probably didn't get the publicity on RT or all that it would have got if it was something smaller. But we are where we are with Brexit. We'll have to learn to live with it. 10 years' time, we'll wonder what all the fuss is about. It was the same if you go back to 2000, all our computers were going to stop. The whole world was going to stop because we were changing over to Millennium, and midnight came. I was at a party in my neighbour's house, and the computers were still working when I came home.
Yeah. Going back to pigs then again, we're looking at, Charles had a report out during the week about, dairy labour shortage, and then you hear of workers telling awful stories about, mad hours and that kind of thing. The pig sector's had staff for years. What lessons do you think that the dairy sector could learn from the pigs in that front?
Yeah, you have to give a regulated hour. You have to have a starting time, you have to have a finishing time, and it has to be within the 8 to 10 hours. There's nobody willing to work the hours that the farmers themselves are working, and they're going to have to realise that. That even our own children are not willing to work the hours that we have worked.
Yeah.
And they're probably right. Farmers are starting milking there at 7 o'clock. I've got to know some farmers since I joined, and I asked them what time did they start, and they all said they start 6:30 to 7. And they're still working at 6:30 to 7 that evening, maybe 8, milking cows. They're going to have to realise that they might be willing to do that, but the younger generation and the people that work for you are not willing to do that. They want a 8 hour day, they want a life, and farming is a great life, but we just have to realise that everybody isn't as passionate. As regards my staff, I have them here. I think the minimum anybody's here is 10 years. It's the shortest, going back to 20. So
it's a good record.
Well, they're good lads, and hopefully we get on reasonably well, even though we're fighting on time. No, you are where you are, and if the dairy industry is going to keep expanding the way they are, they're still going to get into the highs and lows that the big industry have witnessed, and I can't see how the dairy farmers are going to handle that. I think it's what's going on in the expansion ways and all that is crazy, because number one, you won't get the staff, number two, you won't have an issue with nitrates, and number three, are you just producing more for less?
So kind of seeing the expansion in the dairy sector that the pig sector saw 20 years ago, for example. Yeah. And
the pig sector is still seen by 2 or 3 very, very ruthless, I would call them the new landlords.
Right. Okay.
I think we're going back to that. If we look at carefully where we're going back to bigger, and more people working for these. And if you go back to what the landlords were 200 years ago, that's exactly what they were. They owned everything, and then they had the peasants working for them.
And do you think then it's very difficult for a young farmer to get in? If he's not, walking into inheriting a farm, there's a lot of infrastructure there. Would that be a concern to you? Do you think there's too many barriers for young farmers to go into?
There's too many. Unless he's going to inherit it from his uncle or his father or whatever, he's going to be finding it extremely difficult to do what I did, or people like me that I started. I left home at 17 with £5 in my pocket then, and thanks be to God, I have found my way along a long and winding road, and I've ended up here. Can that be done again? Possibly not, because it takes too much to get involved in the pig industry to do it right. You could knock this place and start afresh and build it like the Rolls-Royce units that's been built by the big boys, and then you would have a lovely life. But we are where we are, and we have to just keep going where we are.
When it comes to the low cost loans, then it was widely reported that not many pig farmers, if not any, had access to those. And with a sector that's so heavily borrowed in terms of credit from merchants, what would your opinion on that be?
My opinion on the low cost loans is that the three pillar banks gave it to people that needed it, but didn't really need it as much as other people. And as our eminent president says, everybody got it who needed it, but everybody who needed it didn't get it. And like you have the Ulster Bank adding a 1% charge on, that's crazy. They got away with that. I don't know how they got away with that. AIB and Bank of Ireland cherry picked what they couldn't give it to, and that's the weakness of it, is that the banks were allowed to cherry pick. They didn't really want it, because it was affected more of their profits, which are one of the best in Europe now, with banks performing profit-wise. We've gone from one extreme, banks that was costing the country a fortune, to banks that are very profitable. Yeah. Are we strong enough standing up to them? I don't think so. I think we could do more. If
you were a bank manager and you were, selling the low-cost loans, for example, would you see a pig farmer as more high risk?
Pig farmers have always been high risk, but pig farmers have always paid back. You'll always have two or three, unfortunately, that fall off the grid, and then, unfortunately, through circumstances, probably a lot of it is just circumstances the way it has been. Some of these people can't repay, and gives us all a bad names. But the majority of pig farmers have been very profitable for banks.
Okay, cool. Do you have anything else you want to add in about problems in the sector?
Not really, no, just because you're only whinging again. I want to try and say that it's a very positive picture at the moment, and this year looks like being a good year. And
we're expecting a price rise soon, I would say.
Well, if we haven't got it by Friday, we'll expect it this Friday. That the factories have to realise that there is more to give, and that farmers are only hanging in there, and they need to get more to survive.
The Irish Farmers Journal Weekly Podcast.
With many co-ops increasing milk prices for May, we talked to Glanbia's Director of Milk Supply, Sean Molloy, about dairy markets.
Anthony Jordan here from the Irish Farmers Journal. I'm here with Sean Molloy of Glanbia. Sean, you're very welcome.
Thank you, Anthony.
I suppose first off, was in terms of dairy, the markets are obviously booming at the moment. Are you concerned that maybe markets are moving a bit too fast?
Well, I think volatility is a feature of the dairy industry, and it's here to stay. So, Anthony, we're going to have volatility in the markets. Fortunately, at the moment, we're on the upward side of that volatility. There are signs that we're going to have a positive outlook for in the short term at least, but we have to be very cautious, and that's why in Glanbia we're focused on still managing the volatility through, particularly the fixed milk price scheme.
I suppose in terms of the markets with the UK seem to be worrying at the moment. Cheddar, obviously, for example, is down 23%. What's your kind of opinion on the UK markets at the moment?
I think the UK is always a challenging market. Of course, you've got the added complexity now with significant volatility in the sterling and the exchange rate that we have to manage. That said, it is an important outlet for dairy ingredients, particularly for cheese, so we'll have to continue to do our best within that market. But it is the complexity of the currency movement as well as the price challenge within it does add a degree of difficulty in that market.
I suppose in terms of butter, is there a butter price scene at the moment, or will it hit €6,000 per tonne, do you think?
Well, butter has been a phenomenal story. In fact, if you look at it over the last number of years, butter as a product is back in vogue with consumers. It's doing very well across the world, particularly in developed markets like Europe and indeed particularly in the US. It has gone to extreme highs at the moment. That is challenging. It will encourage substitution and it will encourage buyers to look at alternate options. And indeed, of course, you always have to remember at those prices, the volume that's traded at those very high prices tends to be quite small. So it looks like the butter could enjoy that price for a period of time, but no doubt will fall back to more normalised levels.
You talked about the fixed price scheme here. Why did you decide to offer the extra 1 year in the price, or the fixed price scheme?
Well, we are on phase 10 of our fixed milk price scheme now, so this is a consistent part of the Glanbia methodology in terms of giving offerings to farmers. We'll have between 1.6 and 2 billion litres of milk onto the scheme at this stage, so it's a very successful part of our pricing mechanic. We initially announced the scheme some weeks back at a price point of 31 cent a litre. Since then, we've continued to work with customers, and we're very fortunate that we've managed to expand the volume, and because of that, the average price has now gone up to 32 cents a litre, which is in actual fact the highest fixed milk price, base price, that we've ever launched in the history of the scheme. So we're hoping to go out to farmers with that in the next couple of weeks.
By 2020, I suppose Glanbia's average herd size will be 116 cows. In terms of labour, would this be sustainable?
Labour is a critical issue for farmers, particularly during the seasonal periods of work over the spring and winter months with cows calving. I think as an industry, this is an area that, whilst we spoke about volatility for the last number of years, this is the new area of real focus that's needed in terms of addressing the labour shortage, not only in terms of numbers but in terms of skills. It is fixable, but it will require an industry approach to do that, both on farm level in terms of the specialisation of farms in dairying and the attractiveness of those places as places of work, but also in the supply of labour onto those farms. Addressable, but not without a significant concerted effort, and indeed something that at government level in terms of policy environment will also have to be looked at.
Sean Molloy, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, thank you.
You're listening to the Irish Farmers Journal podcast.
The NDC Kerrygold Quality Milk Award winners held a farm walk on Wednesday. News correspondent Anthony Jordan was in Kappa, County Waterford, to talk to Tom Power about their success story.
Anthony Jordan here from the Irish Farmers Journal. I'm on the farm of Tom Power and his wife Moya in Kappa, County Waterford. They last year, in October 2016, won the Kerrygold National Milk Quality Award, which, Tom, obviously must have been a massive achievement and a proud moment for you and your family.
Huge, yeah. I suppose I was absolutely thrilled for my parents, number one, because they've put so much time and effort into it down the years. So I'm, as I said to you, understand I'm the 6th generation here, but I kind of I love it here. I was really enticed to come home because it's an attractive place to work, and I'm thrilled that we got the reward, but more importantly that my parents got the reward for all the work they've done down through the years,
And in terms of today, obviously it's a Teagasc organised farm walk. Over 500 people attended. It must be brilliant for people to come here to your farm so you can showcase what you're about and what your farm enterprise is about.
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie to you, it took a lot of work. There was a lot of preparation for it, because I suppose the walk comes at just after or during a busy time of year. We're in the middle of breeding, so our focus is always on that, but look, at the end of the day, it was great. I knew once we kind of got through the process of getting ready for it that we'd really enjoy today, because it's just great to showcase where we live, number one, because it's beautiful here, and where we farm, and I suppose just let people see what we're doing, not in a showy off kind of way, but just that we're very proud of what we're doing, and we'd like to showcase it. So
I heard your father speak earlier on one of the introductory stands, and he was talking about farm successions, and he was saying that he gave the farm over to you at 26. What kind of I suppose a responsibility did you feel, or were you motivated to kind of really expand and to be as productive as you could?
Yeah, well, I suppose when somebody puts that leap of faith in you, like you have to remember that he's handing over a business that he's inherited, that he's worked on so hard, and that he's putting all of that trust into me, that it's him saying to me, well, I'm handing this all over to you, you take it and do whatever you want with it. And it was basically like that, because although he's still 100% involved and still does so much work here, he kind of straight away left me make any decisions I wanted. Like, some of them were wrong, and I've made some monumental blunders, but I've learned from them, and I've probably learned quicker than I would have had I got the farm later, and had he maybe, I won't say interfered, but maybe showed his views too much. But no, I've been very lucky with him, yeah.
And just finally, I suppose, the reaction from the crowd, what have you been hearing from people who've been here and who viewed the yard? Has it been very positive?
Yeah, very positive. I suppose first things, I met a lot of the people that were here that were nominees themselves in 16 with us, so it was great to see them. Friends, local farmers, we've done a bit of new building here, so I think people are interested in that. Look, it's just been all positive. It's great to see people here.
To look around the farm and their spick and span, I think it's time for you to relax. Thank you very much, Tom, for all that.
Thanks very much. Good luck.
the Irish Farmers Journal weekly podcast.
And in this week's Irish Country Living, Ciara Leahy talks about some fantastic summer treats in the third edition of Irish Country Living's food magazine.
Hi, my name is Mary Phelan and welcome to the Country Living section of this week's podcast. I'm joined by my colleague Ciara Leahy, and in this week's edition of the paper, Ciara has edited a magazine called Irish Country Living Food. It's the third edition of Irish Country Living Food and I'm very excited to get my hands on it. So Ciara, tell me what's in store for our readers.
Hi Mary, yeah, we have a free 32-page edition of Irish Country Living Food, and this is our summer edition, so it is packed full of fantastic light summer treats. One of the sections that really is worth checking out is our healthy snack section. And look, it's summertime, everybody wants to put their best foot forward, but these recipes show that you can eat really healthily but it's still delicious. One of my favourites is actually a recipe, a porridge bread scone slices with ricotta and tomatoes. It's absolutely beautiful. It's really like hearty, but the scones are made with porridge, so they're really healthy, and the ricotta is so light and there's lots of beautiful tomatoes with it, and it's really like a nice snack instead of like those, you know, more stodgy scones covered in butter and jam, which obviously is really, really nice but is more of a treat. There's these lemon and chia seed power balls, which are actually brilliant for making with the kids, because they literally can roll them up in their hands. They have a beautiful zingy orange zest off them as well, and we have frozen yogurt cups and fruit skewers. And then we also have another section where we're keeping it healthy, but with our fish recipes, but we might have added a little bit more oil and butter to these sections. But I suppose with our fish recipes in this edition, what we really wanted to do was kind of create really accessible fish recipes. So look, most people have a salmon dish up their sleeves or a fish pie recipe, but we kind of wanted to like pull the boat out a small bit, and we worked with claw.
Nice pun, Ciara, nice pun.
Oh, that actually wasn't even planned. Okay, so we have like a really cool recipe for gamba. So most people know what to do with prawns, but what do you do when you actually get the full prawn with all the skin on? So
I was going to say I don't even know what gambas are.
Yeah, so they're the prawns with literally in their shell, and we have this fantastic recipe where you cook them up with a bit of chilli and oil and some Old Bay seasoning, and you literally serve it in the pot that it's made, and it looks fantastic if you have people over. We have a gorgeous spread on oysters.
You are the queen of oysters.
I am a bit obsessed with oysters, that is correct. And Irish oysters are absolutely amazing. And people are tending to get them more in restaurants and stuff like that, but we actually show you how to shuck an oyster, and it's actually not that hard once you've got the right equipment. And we literally have them blowtorched, flamed under the blowtorch, but if you don't have one of them at home, you can just put them under the grill, and then we have a gorgeous cucumber sauce that goes on top of them as well. So oysters 3 ways. It looks really, really cool. And also we have this fantastic John Dory that was literally caught that morning that you literally just put on a barbecue, and it's so simple. It literally shows what you can do with a whole fish. Some people go into a fishmonger's, they'll see a big fish and be like, I haven't a clue what to do with that. You're literally just putting it straight onto the barbecue, and we show you how.
Okay, wow, very exciting. Now, I'm a little bit scared of oysters, but I am not scared of meringues. Can you please tell me about those pink meringues on the cover?
Okay, yeah. These are our amazing pretty and pink meringues. Look, meringues are pretty easy to make. Most people can do the white version, but oh my God, adding a little bit of food colouring, and wow, these ones are jump off the page pretty, and they will be in your home as well. And the whole thing about our desserts theme in this edition is it's all based on berries. So we have, as well as our pretty and pink meringue nest, we have a summer garden party showstopper cake, which is absolutely gorgeous. We have homemade raspberry jelly, which is a little posher take on the kind of jelly that you might have made when you were a kid. And also there's pimp-soaked berry shortcake sandwiches, which are to die for. They are a little more biscuity than sponge, so it's a really kind of different take on the usual kind of Victoria sponge classic summer dessert.
Wow, okay, they sound absolutely delicious. And now, Ciara, you also got on the road for the mag. You know, you went out there to Italy, to northern Italy specifically, to kind of see what the gastronomic gems are there. So please tell us about your trip. I know you had a nice time.
Yeah, I suppose we wanted to kind of offer, look, when you go on holidays, one of the things that people actually enjoy most is going out for dinner or you know, trying the food of the area, and Italy, oh my God, is obviously a foodie dream, but the whole area of northern Italy, so Venice and the surrounding areas, it's absolutely fantastic. So I did a trip, a river cruise with Uniworld. So we went to Venice, and literally you get a guided tour around the Rialto market, which is just amazing. We went to Chiaggio, which is kind of known as Little Venice, and there's a fish market there where I swear to God, you just have to stop and listen to the sounds. It's the language of the Italian language. It's like it's like a foodie romance sound, because they're all just bartering against each other to get the best price for this fresh fish that's just come in that morning. It's absolutely a fantastic place. And then I also went to Bologna, which is the birthplace of bolognese and mortadello, and you literally just go through the town and you have these massive drums of homemade tortellini and tagliatelle. And not far from that you've got Modena, which is famous for the balsamic vinegar. Very close to that is also where Parmesan is from, and the province of Parma is just over an hour away. So really it is just a foodie dream.
Wow. Okay, I am hungry just listening to you. You also, there's a bit of foodie news, because we're talking about the ploughing already, which I can't believe.
I know, we are talking about the ploughing already, but there is a foodie element to it. Basically, the search is now on for the winner of the National Brown Bread Baking Competition, which the MPA do in association with Aldi and the Irish Country Women's Association. Phyllis McGovern from Waterford, she won last year, and her brown bread went on the shelves of Aldi stores nationwide. Look, the sale of the winning loaf, once it goes on shelf in Aldi, is guaranteed to be at least €10,000 in profits for the winner. So we have the news on how you can enter that. And also finally, one of the biggest food festivals is on this weekend, Taste of Dublin, and we chat to Sunil Guy, who has been taking Indian food in Ireland to a whole new level. So there's lots and lots in this week's free Irish Country Living food magazine.
Yes, and I think everyone is quite excited about Taste of Dublin, and it really has grown year on year. And can I just say about the Aldi brown bread that I have bought Phyllis's loaf myself, and it is divine. And I'm quite fussy about my brown bread, but I have been struck by just how nice that one is.
It is absolutely brilliant, and whoever is actually going to win this year, it's hard. It's big boots to fill. But like, you know what? If you have tasted Phyllis's brown bread and you think, I think I could do a bit better, it is a competition well worth entering.
Give it a shot. Yes. Okay, so that is all. I'm very excited to read this magazine. So all in this week's Irish Farmers Journal, which is on shelves on Thursday.
Thank you.
The Irish Farmers Journal podcast, online at farmersjournal.ie and on iTunes every Thursday.